Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi all, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. Today we're joined by Alexis Harris, who serves as Research and Insights Manager, Global and North America functions at TikTok. She specializes in leveraging mixed quantitative methods and fostering cross-functional relationships to amplify research impact within global and North America marketing teams. With expertise in creative, consumer journey, audience, and neuromarketing research, Alexis excels in delivering actionable insights for her clients. Also joining us this episode is Devora Rogers, Chief Strategy Officer at Alter Agents. She has led research teams, developed the methodology deployed for Google's groundbreaking ZMOT research, launched global offices, and worked with dozens of global brands, including TikTok. Devora believes in breaking molds, pushing harder, developing new tools, and delivering rock-solid work for clients. Thanks for joining us on this episode, Alexis and Devora.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you. Now, I hear that you did an interesting study on content variety together, which we're going to be covering today. First, I'd like to hear a little bit about the background on your partnership and this project.
Yeah, I can kind of kick us off. So we've been doing research in the realms of social media and media, digital media, shopper behavior for over a decade. And TikTok reached out and sort of said, hey, we have a hypothesis based on some things we're seeing in our data. And I was really excited because we have known for a long time that the variety of content matters in all kinds of environments. And so it was really fun to get to just focus on, a social platform like TikTok that is having this amazing moment, and to be able to look at what brands can do to really inform their content strategy.
Absolutely. And then just building off of that, from our perspective, we know that a lot more people are really kind of bought into TikTok and are very much investing in the platform. And what we wanted to do was kind of provide these sort of like strategies and ways to optimize for various outcomes. That was something that was really big for us, is kind of making this the study that was all about how to do these things that we know our platform really thrives in. For example, we know that we're an entertainment platform. We thrive when it comes to entertaining our users. There's a great amount of authenticity that is placed on TikTok and on TikTok creators. And so with that, we wanted to know, how can brands do that? And not only how they do it, but how that actually relates to the brand outcomes and what they can hope to achieve by playing around with these different things.
Great. Some lofty research goals. Can you give us and our audience of insights professionals a peek into the methodology that you used in the study?
Sure. So this was quantitative online research. We spoke to 2,400 adults in the United States. Folks had to be regular TikTok users, and they had to engage with the platform at least once a month. We used something called experimental design, and it had two key components. The first was in-context exposure, which is really cool. Basically, it means that you're experiencing the content in very similar to the environment that you would in the natural world, maybe not in the ocean or something, but like in the natural world on your phone. And that allowed us to show different TikTok content mixes in this sort of quote unquote natural setting. And so we had brand led, that was, content that was with a sponsored tag that came directly from a brand account. We had creator led content that had also a sponsored tag that showed it was from a creator account. And then that included like a hashtag brand partner in the caption. And then there was organic, which was content without the sponsored tag, coming directly from a brand account. And so what we did is we had the in-context experience, and then we had actually in-context simulated shopping, where after being exposed to the content, they were able to go to a shopping environment, and we could see if that was something that they were going to ultimately be more likely to purchase.
And then on top of that, from our perspective, how we kind of land the research with our clients, with all of our agency partners, things like that, is that we want to have something really easily digestible, regardless of how familiar, the audience is with all of this research terminology that, of course, our team loves to our core. But oftentimes we're working with media planners up to C-suite. So we had this idea to essentially create like a recipe guidebook. So we use this recipe analogy where we were like, okay, if you're cooking in the kitchen, you might be playing with a variety of different spices, different ingredients, and it's very playful. You know what kind of dish you're trying to create. But there's a lot of different things you can put into it to get that perfect outcome. So that's how we essentially created this concept of like a recipe card for various brand metrics that you're trying to hit. So we have different ones, whether your goal is full funnel, we have, path for you. If you're looking for engagement or branding, we have these various recipe cards. So it was really something that we loved creating with the team at Alter Agents, and I think was really helpful for us as well when it comes to kind of explaining this to various people. Is we're like, you're playing around in the kitchen, you're having a good time, you're going to get to that outcome, but there's so many different things you can put into it.
Nice. And brands get to enjoy the meal as well once they go through with it as well. So with the growth of TikTok, I'm sure a lot of brands are interested in the insights you uncovered so they can maximize their own advertising campaigns as well. One of the key findings that I saw was that 64% of TikTok users prefer brands that offer a diverse range of content. Can you elaborate a little on this, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So our findings really indicated that TikTok users do love this variety of content, as you said, but oftentimes, like, we were like, okay, what is really happening from that? What we saw is this increase in stated emotion. So we have more emotions and more positive emotions, actually 65%, when there was this diverse range of content. So first up, we saw that, and then we're like, okay, what does that mean? It's great to see emotion, but beyond that, what's in it for brands? We really saw that there was like a lift across all of these kind of key brand metrics, everything from familiarity to favorability and relevance. So there's kind of a case for why brands should really care. But then you also see KPIs increase, such as there was a 23% lift in engagement, there was a 25% increase in time watched, and then 5% for branding. So really across the board, there was something in it for brands that we were like, on other channels, other platforms in the past, there's been this sort of strategy of having really high repetition. For example, if I'm sitting on my couch watching TV, I'm really used to seeing the same ad multiple times. My brain is just kind of like, okay, that's normal. But we knew that wasn't really the case on TikTok. People are coming to TikTok for entertainment, and this organic entertainment. So they expect ads to show up in that same light. And that's why we were like, okay, what are we going to tell brands, and how are we going to not only tell them that they should be doing this, but kind of get them to buy in that if they do this, they're going to have these lifts. So that was our big approach there. But then we also had, this argument for a variety of creators as well. So not only is there the diverse range of content, we also see that TikTok users want to see a diverse range of creators. And that's something that is actually really helpful to create variety. This example of, you might have this like clear messaging that you want to have show up in all of your content, but just using maybe 3 different creators, it's going to look a little different, and then it's going to feel a little different for users as well.
Yes. So I guess you mentioned that you tested different content types, which is really good practice. Can you explain how each type performed in terms of engagement and user preference?
Sure. So as we mentioned, we tested 3 types of content: brand-led, creator-led, and organic. And some respondents were shown a variety of content. Others received the same repeated content. That's part of the experimental design. And, as you mentioned, the big thing, the big stat is that 2 out of 3 people like to see content coming from a variety of creators. They like to see a variety of content, and they like to see it from a variety of creators. It makes them feel that the brand is more relatable, more authentic. They like to see brands supporting a number of creators, which is also just interesting, right? Like, there's like love for the creators. People are like, oh, good, supporting out there, supporting the folks, right? And they find that makes the content more interesting, and it helps build trust. More than half of folks were more likely to buy a product that a creator recommends. So just extraordinary results, right? If you're a brand, it starts to be a no-brainer. But we also found that, we didn't know going in, maybe creators would win the day. But actually, we found that combining brand-led and creator-led content is actually highly effective. And that often yielded the best outcomes across the various metrics. So a mix of organic, brand-led, creator content really enhances the full funnel results. And TikTok users are looking for brand content for education, creator content for entertainment. They find creators particularly persuasive. They find them relatable, especially in retail. Makes sense, right? And it is true that high production content is impactful, but low production content also plays a role. And shorter content, particularly under 31 seconds, performs really well. And then, featuring the product throughout often leads to the best results.
Including multiple creators also increases your relatability across different segments potentially as well. So there's a good reason for doing that too. The study highlights the effectiveness of combining brand-led and creator-led content. Why is this combination particularly powerful? What role do each play in engaging audiences?
Yeah, so we tested different types of, native content, as Devora mentioned. Since we are always recommending to brands a lot of these types of content, they essentially come up in every type of research that we do, even just like look at, what's happening on platform. People want to see things like reviews, all hacks, tutorials, that type of thing. But there's also the like get ready with me style of video or day in my life, kind of behind the scenes. So we tested all of these and we're like, okay, where can these different types of content come from, or where could they maybe come from a brand or a creator? Maybe this is better to kind of stay in the creator lane. And something that we saw is that, when it comes like a behind the scenes content, any kind of like product close up, that type of thing, that's where you're really going to see brands thrive because they know their products best. Like they know, first of all, how it's getting made. They have the behind the scenes content, but then when it comes to like explaining the product, that's really going to be their area of expertise. Meanwhile, like when it comes to creators, they're going to be the best at reviews. We don't really want to see someone, grade their own homework kind of thing. So when you're sitting watching a creator video, it oftentimes feels like, you're on like FaceTime with a friend. You're like, okay, seeing them maybe use something in their kitchen, maybe they're cooking, showing you their favorite like olive oil, like that blew up for a minute. Or especially with like beauty, the kind of beauty vertical is something where we see so much importance placed on creators, but also that like variety of creators because everybody's going to have a different kind of complexion or different needs when it comes to their beauty products that they're using. And so not only do they want to see a creator actually be the person that is reviewing it or showing a tutorial, they also want to have this variety of creators so they have somebody that they feel is really relatable. But they can also see, multiple different people say, okay, this product really worked for me. And then they'll go out and decide that they want to try that too. So that's really why we're like, okay, let's test all of these different things, have these kind of clear guidelines, like recommendations for brands on how they can play with this. But then kind of noting to what Devora said as well, there's some key things that we see brands versus creators help do. When it comes to creators, they're really going to be, filling these entertainment focused needs. So anytime you're really looking to like entertain, get people just excited about something, creators can really help with that. Versus if you're looking for this like informational style content, that's where we see brands really kind of thrive.
So we've covered now where the content originates. What about other details like high, low production, length of content, other parameters, etc., that brands might consider when producing content for TikTok?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll take this off and then let Devora go into some of the details. But with this topic, it's something that has come up for us time and time again, especially knowing we're really advocating for like creative bravery in this space. And that's something that with certain brands, with certain verticals, that's something that feels very scary because, if you're a luxury brand, you might be like, well, so much of our content has been this high production quality for so long. And that feels like the bread and butter that you're used to. So we wanted to have some different recommendations. First up, we wanted things that were really like vertical agnostic, that just said no matter what vertical, play around with these different things. It doesn't mean that if you're a luxury brand, all of your content is going to be, this lower production quality starting tomorrow. That's not the recommendation we would ever want to make, but we want to say, okay, you can try around like with that a little bit, maybe use a creator to help with that process, and have something like that kind of recommendation. But then also had some different vertical nuance that says, okay, beauty is a big one for us. What are some things, if you're in the beauty space, you should really be keeping in mind? So it's kind of always what we look to do is have as much that is, relevant for everyone, but also say, here's where some things can be a little bit more specific to you.
Yeah, and to build on Alexis' thoughts there, in terms of companies that want to boost their brand metrics, so like let's say they want to improve recall or favorability or relevance, right? Those are common KPIs that brands are working with to evaluate marketing performance. And what we found there is that if you're wanting to elevate those brand metrics, the variety of content's going to work best, and it should have one of three elements: brand-led content, one, two, content under 31 seconds, and or highly produced content. So like a brand could choose and sort of say, okay, I can't do all these things, but I can do one of those. Great, that's going to have an impact. And if you're wanting to boost brand purchase intent or likelihood to recommend, then that's where we would say have at least one of the following: one, content between 16 and 30 seconds, featuring your product heavily full time, and then highly produced content, right? So we can kind of put these together and make the meal, to carry on our food metaphor, that works best for your brand and your consumers.
What are some practical steps that brands can take to implement the findings from the study in their TikTok content strategy?
Yeah, well, first they should go look at our study, which I think you're going to post. But you can also look it up by going to alteragents.com and doing a Google search for variety of is the spice of content. So that's one way, because there's a lot of really great findings and go-dos, actionable things that brands can do. But also I would just say start playing with different things. This isn't the age of making perfect content. It's better to make more varied content. Let that drive, but both your ability to look at the results and A/B test, but also just reveal generally if maybe there's a way in which you're producing content that could shift. Doesn't need to be as perfect. It could be with micro creators instead of one big creator. It could be, trying out different types of content creation. My favorite one that I often tell brands to do is like, give your product manager a beer and sit them in front of their product and let them tell all the things to the audience that they wish they could tell us and somebody else would care. And their partner is like, please stop talking about your product. But the audience, there's a percentage of audience that wants to know every detail. Some of us are married to people like that. It's hard. But if TikTok has those answers from somebody knowledgeable, it can go a long way. And you don't need to pay millions of dollars for that. You can simply buy that beer for that product manager and sit them in front of a camera and see what happens.
Yes, I could think of a few things that I'd be interested in watching along those lines. Yes, so you're right, Devora. I will be posting the link in the show notes, so people can go and check it out. It is loaded with interesting information for people wanting to get more out of their TikTok spend as well. So, are there any future areas of research that you both, or you, Devora, believe could further enhance our understanding of content variety and user engagement on TikTok?
Yeah. So for big brands, if there's folks listening who have big budgets, fine, go do quantitative research, go do neuroscience. It will prove out many of the things that we show here, and you'll be able to evaluate for your vertical and your brand what you ought to do. If you are a smaller brand, if you're a brand that just simply doesn't have a massive research budget to work with, go do a handful of qualitative interviews, go use mobile ethnographies to ask your users, what kind of content do you want from us? Or share with us the content that you're watching in this category right now. And I think that many brands would be surprised to see the variety of content, the diversity of content that exists on TikTok in particular. I mean, people are watching power washing videos. We're weird. Humans are weird. And TikTok lets us be, so if you can afford it, fine, do the quant research, do the neuroscience. And I think a lot of these findings will be replicated, but at the same time, you can just do smaller scale, do some qualitative and look at what people are using, and you should be able to get a lot out of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think one thing I would just build on is, for us, this study was something where we had a lot of hypotheses and things that we were already aware of about our platform. But as we kept getting questions from clients, questions from agencies, things like that, we really wanted to be able to answer those in a really tactile way. And that's essentially how we got to this point of, we knew a lot of people were bought in and they would come to us and say, hey, should we use one creator that is really popular, the biggest creator in this space, or should I use 5, smaller micro creators? And we had an inkling on that, but we didn't really have a clear answer. And I think that's how we got to this point. So I would just say, listen to the questions that are coming up and what there's really gaps on that need to be answered for recos.
What I love about this discussion today is just how TikTok is learning from the past, from other platforms, etc., and then providing or creating an environment which is really conducive to its audience and what its audience is wanting. So well done on that, and thank you so much for both sharing all of your thoughts and perspectives today.
Thank you so
much. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. And for those who have enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with others. There's a lot to dig into with this research study, so I'm sure you'll be able to find that interesting, and they will too. So if you do, yes, please also leave a review or subscribe to the podcast as well. Until next time, thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.